So one gentleman started with me 6 years ago. Mosquito Joe spraying in the field. We promoted him to field ops manager, so he was overseeing the team in the field. He got promoted to operations manager, which was doing all the routing behind the scenes, the batching, and all that stuff in the operation. And he just continued to take on more and more. Right now, he is now my general manager for one of our brands.
Yo, this is Streetwise. I'm your host, Matthew McReynolds. With me here today, special guest, Dennis Stein. First met Dennis as a fellow Mosquito Joe franchisee, but this guy has a lot going on. We're going to talk about that today. And we're actually working on some recurring segments in the franchise space. So we're going to talk about that. This whole episode is about us really connecting and making recurring content around franchise ownership and the opportunity. So we're just going to go ahead and get right on in. Dennis, appreciate you for joining.
Yeah, no, I appreciate being on here, and obviously I followed you a lot on LinkedIn, and your content, your posting is amazing, and to dedicate that much time and energy to it, I admire and envy someone that can do that. I'm not big on social media, so that's pretty impressive what you've done on there. So just keep growing that audience. I know you're going to go places as you keep growing and delivering great content every day. I mean, I see, I'm like, holy, he's just delivering content every day. It's impressive. So it's great to be here. I think we can really help a lot of people. And we can learn ourselves. I mean, we can never stop learning every day. I mean, every day I learn something new, and whether it's in the franchise world or in the business world or investing, I try to be a sponge every day and just try to learn. But this journey's been good. It's franchising now for we're going on our eighth year, so eighth year in franchising, and it's been a great ride, man.
Dude, that's awesome. And I got to say, I've told you this offline, but I'm going to keep preaching it. It was you, of all the other franchisees, I saw what you were doing and was like, oh man, this guy's onto something. And we are trying to basically replicate and build our model on a lot of what you're doing with the multi-brand, the vertical integration, and then you've moved over into the franchise consulting space. And so you've been kind of a mentor from afar. So getting to have you on this show, but also working together in some sort of capacity and having you as a recurrent guest is really exciting for me. And it's a testament to there's mentors and there's people all over the place that are synonymous to what you're doing. And all it takes is reaching out and putting yourself out there, and don't be afraid to shoot your shot, man. So
Yeah,
I
no,
appreciate you for what you're building and being willing to kind of hop on and help me with this crazy thing that we're trying to build over here. And um, all the roses to you for what you're doing. So I'm curious, man, in the franchising space, what motivated you to do multiple brands? Because you started, I knew you as Mosquito Joe. When we came into Mosquito Joe, you were the Dennis Stein. You were one of the bigger franchisees at the time. Mosquito Joe was a lot smaller than it is now. But did you always have that concept that you're going to add multiple brands into
yeah.
your organization?
I think where it came from is we now have a really big leadership team. We develop leaders. That's what we're all about. I mean, my focus every day is how can I develop leaders that can run our businesses. So as we grow that leadership team, and that leadership team's been with me for now 5 and 6 years. A lot of these guys and women. So we got a nice diverse bunch.
Awesome.
They're all in. And when they see the vision as something bigger, where we want to build this home service empire, they're like, we're in. We're all in. What can we do to help impact that? What can we do to take on more responsibilities? I don't want to just be with a business that we service from April to November. What else can we do? We have, so the candidate pool that we have right now in the field, I have 45 technicians. I have in the office, we have 45 technicians in the field. I have 7 office team members in the office, And then
Okay.
I have a leadership team of 7. And they range everywhere from the general manager down to the human resources, down to marketing manager, office manager, field ops manager. So we said, hey, what can we do to really grow something bigger? Because we have a talented bunch here and we have a big pool of candidates to pull from. So how can we integrate other home service franchises into this? And that's when we started looking at a couple of the franchise brands, and we're now we just pulled the trigger on a 4th brand. We have 2 more in the works that we're working on. 2 more brands that are in the home service sector that we really like, because home services are not going anywhere.
Yeah,
They're
that's great.
recession proof. You have 2 types of demographics now. You got the baby boomers, you have the elderly that can't do the stuff around their home, right? And then you have this new young generation that don't want to do the stuff around the house. So you're really gearing a lot of these home services towards 2 groups of people, right? And then you have the middle, which maybe you have that, Gen X, Gen Y that actually don't want to do the work anymore because they have the finances and the money now to hire people. Maybe they've done the work in the past around their house. They've done a lot because they just didn't have the finances to do it. But now they're getting comfortable where, like, hey, you know what? I want to enjoy my 40s and 50s, and I just want to hire somebody to do the work around the house so I don't have to do it. And they'll pay a premium for this because if you think about it, what do we always want? We want time, right? So
Right.
time is more important to us than anything else in life. That's the biggest commodity we have. The biggest, you know, it's bigger than finances. It's bigger than everything else because if you have time, you can spend it with your family, do the things you want to do. So we looked at home services like, hey, you know what? This is where we want to be. We have this big leadership team. We have a candidate pool of employees to pull from because I have 45 guys. I have a waiting list right now to come and work for us. I
Wow, there we
Yeah,
go. Let's
dude,
go.
we built a culture that is so strong, which it's my team that's built that. That we actually have to turn away guys right now. It's crazy. So we've never been in this position where we have I think 5 to 10 technicians that want to come work for us, and I can't even hire them. So we have a waiting list. So I said, you know what? What's their skill sets, right? Can they do things around the home? Can they do handyman work? Can they install garage doors? Can they install windows? What can we do to put these guys to work, men and women? What can we do to put them to work where we can really build this empire of home services? So that's kind of where we're at right now. Like I said, we have 3 brands in the home service space now. We have one that's not in the home service space, just as a little fun project. But it's taking that leadership team that we have now and continue for them to develop into something bigger, to take on. I see my office manager as being a general manager and running one of these big businesses for us.
Let's
So
go.
when I hire these people to be on our leadership team, we're very very selective on who we bring on board. I have to see, do they have the PhD? And that's not a degree from college either. That's poor, hungry, and driven.
Yeah, okay. I
That's
like
what I
that.
look for. I don't care if they have a 4-year degree. I don't care if they have a master's. To me, none of that stuff is important. Can you get in front of me? Can you speak well? Can you communicate? Are you driven? Are you ambitious? Those are the things I look for. So when we get these, and a lot of them started with me right out of college. I have a woman that's starting with us on Monday. She just graduated, 4 years in marketing, and she's coming on board. And I'm excited because she's just driven. This girl is driven, so she's gonna be coming on board. So having bigger plans for her and a bigger vision for her is what gets me excited every day about what can we add now, what's next. I spend a lot of my time researching brands, researching business opportunities. We're looking at M&A now, mergers and acquisitions. Who can we acquire? What small businesses can we acquire and blow them up? And So there's a lot of stuff that we're doing now be in the back end. But yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting. Franchising has been very good to me. I think it's a great way for people to get into business without knowing too much about business. Because you're going into a partnership with a franchise brand that's going to support you. They're going to give you the playbook. They're going to help you with marketing, staffing, operations, training. They're going to help you with all that stuff. Now, will they do it for you? No. You got to execute. You have to execute. But if they're going to help you build that business, you don't need to go to the Wharton School of Business in order to open up a franchise. If you're
No doubt.
driven and you want to work 6, 7 days a week to get this thing up and running, you're going to be very successful. However, I don't think business ownership and franchise ownership is for everyone.
Amen.
I don't think it's for
Amen.
everyone.
You gave us so much there. I want to break it down a little bit, and we can dive into some of the intricacies. So you have 3 brands in the home service space and 1 brand that's not. Now, we could talk about the individual brands, but you also said you had 45 technicians. So it was 7 people on your leadership team. So I'd like to break down how you have your brands structured and what you look for when you add a brand, and then what roles do you have on your leadership team, and then how many of those 45 technicians are tied to each brand?
It's a great question. It's a lot of parts to that question, but so
Yeah, sorry about
yeah.
that.
So no, this is great. So I'll explain. So one gentleman started with me 6 years ago, and he was spraying in the field, technician
With
in the
Mosquito
field.
Joe.
Yep, Mosquito Joe spraying in the field. We promoted him to field ops manager, so he was overseeing the team in the field. He got promoted to operations manager, which was doing all the routing behind the scenes, the batching, and all that stuff, the operations. He continued to develop himself in a leadership role, and he just continued to take on more and more. Right now, he is now my general manager for one of our brands.
Wow.
So
So now
that's
Mosquito Joe, completely different brand.
correct. So he went
That is
from
amazing.
technician in the field, somebody that I was on the fence about hiring, and we talk about this to the day. We talk about it all the time. I said, you know what? I wasn't even sure if I was going to hire you. He
Man,
is now a part owner. He's part owner of this other brand, and he's the GM of the other brand. So,
let's
this is what
go.
we do. We're able to take these leaders and say, hey, what's next for them? How can we keep them fresh, develop them into bigger leaders to take on bigger responsibilities, and also listen, at the end of the day, make some more money, maybe be an equity partner, own a little piece of the business. So when we do stuff like that, that's what gets me excited. So now another question you had is 45 technicians in the field. Well, one of my brands today, the other brand, needed 6 guys in the field, and we typically don't need that on an average. We usually 2 or 3 guys. We were able to pull those guys from that large pool, and now they're working with that other brand today. So I got 6 guys on the job that could just knock it out.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
they love it too, because you know what? They're doing something different. They're not doing the same thing over and over. It gets repetitive. Anything in life gets repetitive, and they like something different, fresh, keep them exciting, and that's what it's all about. I mean, it used to be called job rotation. Job rotation was, you're doing one job, but you get bored after a while. And once you get bored, it's like, what's my next challenge? Can I do something a little different today? And then I'll go back. So you want to keep it fresh for them, but you also want to look for talented individuals within your team. So now what I do is now I start to identify the bench of talent in my 45 guys that are in the field and say, hey, who's my next field ops manager? Who's my next, who's going to help with the other brands and help launch them? And that's where we're at now. So, like I said, this year, I mean, with staffing, we've never been in a better spot than we are in. I mean, my son is one of the field ops managers out there. And he's like, Dad, we have so many guys that want to come on board. What do we do? I said, you got to put them on a wait list right now. I said, we just can't
Wow.
hire all these people. So that's when, hey, listen, when you have the resources, add more businesses, right? So, if more people want to work for your business, your culture, want to be part of something bigger, that bigger dream, right? It's a bigger dream. If they want to be part of that, the best thing to do is find more opportunities where they can help. So
Amen.
I don't know if that answered any of your questions or
Oh,
most
that
of them.
answered the two outer parts. The internal part was the leadership team. So you did say that you had a technician that you moved up to field ops manager to operations manager. So I'm assuming he's over the one brand, but you have 7 people all together on that leadership team.
Correct.
I'm very big on EOS and that whole model written by Gino Wickman and Traction, and so that's
Sure.
my concept of a leadership team comes from that, but I know it's different for every person in their organization. So do you have 7 people with each operating a specific piece? Is there a brand operator that you have in place that's over each brand? I'm very curious how you have it broken up.
So, that's what I really do, in all the time that I have. First of all, I look for business opportunities, investments, and what we could do to grow this bigger and, and have a bigger business for everybody. But what I really focus on is succession planning. That's where I put all my time. Succession planning to me is the most important thing. Challenging your team, having one-on-ones with them 2-3 times a year, seeing where they're at, where they want to be, where they want to go. So what I do is I look at the skill sets and say, hey, what can this person do for us? They could take on more for us. Are they good at marketing and marketing only? Can they manage a team? Can they look at managing operations? So my general manager of Mosquito Joe right now, and you brought up a good point, he might get promoted to VP of operations where he's going to help oversee operations of all the brands to keep us
Nice.
profitable, keep those numbers in line. And that's something that I'm working with now, but I want to get through this season first.
Yeah.
And not only that, you want to make sure that you have someone that's going to backfill these people that are going to be competent enough that can take over that role, which we have done. So we groom and develop. That's all we do is develop talent, groom them, get them ready for the next position. So yeah, we are looking at a bigger operation where we're going to need people to help oversee a bigger operation. And listen, if you do the right thing, you're just going to continue to get promoted within. Not everyone's going to get promoted. It's not for everybody. But some people want to continue to take on bigger challenges and they want to do something different. So if they're capable, they have to be capable. They have to have the skill set. And when they have that, that's when we make the move and say, hey, listen, we go from year to year. So what does 2023 look like? But what does 2024 look like? I already have my vision for 2024. And then I have the vision for 2025. Like, what is that going to look like? How many brands are we going to have? What's the revenue we're looking to hit? What's those margins we're looking to hit? So you got to have a bigger vision, a bigger plan. Yes, you got to focus on running your day-to-day operations, but if you don't have that long-term vision, then you're never going to grow. You're never going to scale.
This is so good for me because I am in a position of just I'm in a microcosm of what you are building right now. So this is huge value to me, and I know there's a lot of other people out there that are wanting to do something like this, or they see what you have and they have no idea how you build it. And I think it's important to realize that there's scale to everything, and it takes a lot of time. I'm curious, the way that you said your focus is on development and developing people. Do you have a specific grouping of tools, syllabus, anything that you use specifically to take somebody who comes in as a technician and move them up to where they could potentially be a VP of operations? I mean, there's a lot of experience and knowledge that it takes to fill that gap. And you're right, when you do move somebody up, it creates a vacuum. So you have to have systems in place of training and developing people. I'm curious how you guys do that.
Yeah, so it's a great point. I think first they have to have leadership ability. That's number one.
Mm,
And when I'm saying leadership ability, it doesn't mean they need to know how to read a P&L report from day one. That's not leadership. Leadership is, can they manage a few people? Can they get things done? Can they execute well in a positive way every day, bring a lot of positive energy to the team? Can they lead a team through problem solving? Can they fix problems day to day? So when I look at someone that has potential leadership, that's when I say, you know what? This is somebody I'm going to focus my energy on. And this is, we're going to focus on developing them. Then sometimes just throwing them into the fire of the next position, there's nothing wrong with that
nothing wrong with it.
because
Okay.
if they have leadership ability already, they're going to figure it out,
Yeah.
right? Let's think about
Yeah.
this. So they don't need to be an expert on how to do routing. If they have leadership ability and you throw them into the fire, I guarantee by week 2, week 3, they already figured everything out. So it all starts with leadership. So you have to identify leaders. So when I'm looking at 45 guys in the field, I know who the leaders are because who's coming back with a route sheet that's completely done every day? Who's coming back
Mm,
with no complaints? Who overcome something that happened in the field, whether it was the pump broke or fuses went out and they had to change a tire or and they got it done, they fixed it and they moved on. That's leadership. So when you see that, that's when you're like, wow, we got something here. We can work with this person. And sometimes, let me tell you, I'm big on throwing people into the next position and watching them try to swim because you don't need to be there micromanaging that person every day because if you do, you're missing the whole point of leadership. If that person is capable of being a leader, why do you need to micromanage them? Now, granted, you need to check in with them. There's certain people I check in with daily. There's certain people I check in with weekly. There's certain people I'll check in every 2 or 3 weeks. Because I know they're very focused and I don't need to micromanage these people. But if you have to micromanage someone, then they're not leadership material. You have to really trust that that person is going to want to do it, want to learn, want to take on the challenge, and get better at it. And what I love about it is they're going to make mistakes, and when they make mistakes, let them fix it themselves and let them learn. Because if you're there to fix every single mistake that they make, then they're never going to learn. They're never going to get developed into the next. They got to get thicker skin. They got to develop into a better leader. So if you're there to micromanage them every day, then you have the wrong person in position.
wow. There's so much in there, man. You talked about they have to have that base level of leadership. Again, in EOS, it talks about GWC. When you put somebody in a place, they have to get it, they have to want it, and they have to have the capacity. So in
You
order to
got it.
develop, you've got to see that base level. That's really good. I like that. And learning from your mistakes and failures are opportunities to learn and to grow. I mean, too many franchise owners and business owners, but I see a lot of franchisees and they just get so caught up into the weeds that they're missing the whole point of why they are in the situation in the first place. So, man, there's a lot of value there.
You could see leaders in something very small. I was watching my cameras at my office the other day. I was
Oh,
at home
okay.
watching the cameras, and I saw my field ops manager. He was having trouble with the hose. He was fighting with the hose, but he got in the
Hey,
van.
man.
He took off to go get fueled up. Get the van fueled up. One of the technicians grabbed the hose. He pulled it. Now no one's watching him. Remember, there's nobody there. I'm watching him on camera. He pulled the hose all the way out into the parking lot, stretched it all out, and rolled it up properly and perfectly.
Oh, man.
Now, to
Praise
me,
be.
that's leadership because
Yeah.
he didn't have to do that. He could have just left the way it was and walked in the building, punched out, and went home. But he took the time to roll the hose correctly without anyone watching him. So nobody was watching him. That's when if you recognize that, you talk with that person and say, hey, I saw what you did the other day. What are you talking about? I saw that you fixed that hose and nobody was watching you. He's like, oh, you saw me? I'm like, yeah, of course I saw you. I was watching the cameras. And he's
Eyes
like,
everywhere, baby.
he thinks he's doing something wrong. I go, no, I appreciate what you did. You rolled up the hose properly and fixed everything. He's like, yeah, I was the last van back, so I want to make sure everything was nice and neat and clean. Now he's not the supervisor at all. He's just a technician. He could have, I would tell you, probably 30 of my guys would have left it the way it was. Maybe, who knows, maybe
Sure.
35 of the guys would have left it the way it was and walked in the building, brought their route sheet, they would have punched out and went home. That's the stuff you have to see and you have to recognize. Like,
And that's a lot of building up the culture too, is when you see it, it's you having the awareness as the ultimate leader to see and acknowledge those things so your people know, oh wow, that I need to duplicate that that act. I need to do that again. Because my next question was going to be, what do you do? That's a big team, man. I've got a fraction of that on my side. And I'm just, how do you intentionally create that level of culture?
the culture is going to start with us as leaders. So the culture starts with me. It starts with my management team. My management team have to basically be the way I am, that we're going to do everything the right way for the customer. We're going to do everything the right way for the employee. So we're going to treat that employee like he is special. This is a special place to work. You don't want to go anywhere else to work. You want to be here because we're going to recognize you. We're going to take care of you. We're going to treat you fairly. And if we treat you right, then you're going to treat the customer right. And that's what it comes down to. So if you take care of your employees, you take care of your customers, there's nothing else to worry about.
Yeah.
And that's how you build a strong culture. But, you know, like that hose thing, I actually, recognized him in front of everybody at the meeting. You
Nice.
know, so it's praise in public, right? And
Wow.
and whatever you have to counsel in private, but praise in
Wow.
public. So I brought that story up in front of 30 guys, 35 guys, and
Oh,
he's
and
turning
that's amazing.
he's turning all red and everything. But you know
Yeah.
what? It's the right thing to do, because I always tell these guys, if you're bringing the garbage pails in at the end of the street for your customer, don't think they're not watching. They're probably watching you through the blinds. And, they're watching every move you make and they see that. And even if the treatment did not work, they're not leaving as a customer. They're not going anywhere because they're like, wow, he just brought my garbage pails in. That's incredible. Like, that service there's nothing better than that. I mean, this guy really took the time to, see the garbage pails in the street that are about to get hit by a car and brought them in. He went above and beyond. He didn't have to do that. Do you think you're losing that customer?
Not a chance.
Not even if the
Not a
spray and
chance.
the treatment doesn't work, I don't think you're losing that
Yeah.
customer.
There's so many different service options that are out there. At the end of the day, people do business with ones that they know, like, and trust, and that trust is hard to get. But if they see your text doing that, they know at the end of the day the service might fail, but the trust factor is there, and they're going to hold on to it because the likelihood they're going to get that from somebody else is very, very minimal, man. So that's cool. That's
Yeah,
good.
so I know we got off into the weeds, but we were just
No,
talking a
that's
lot about
perfect.
we were talking a
Yeah,
lot
that's
about
cool.
leadership and how
Mhm.
how important it is to build that team from the ground up. But it starts with your management team to live that culture every day. Like, every customer is important. Like, you need to, I don't care, we drop everything to go handle a customer. I don't care what it is, they come first. I always say, guys, they pay your salary, not me. I'm not paying your salary.
Wow.
The customer's paying your salary. So if you guys don't realize that, then you don't get it. Yeah, the
Wow, that's
paycheck comes
good.
from me and I sign off on it, but it's
The
without that
money is
customer,
them.
we're not. No one's getting paid. So
Wow. Nobody's getting paid.
no
No,
one's
that's
getting
good,
paid.
man, because you can't get into the next piece that I'm going to start asking you about without having a true understanding of what developing leaders means and creating a solid culture. You can barely survive with one brand, not multiple. But I do want to take a step back and look more bird's eye view. When you're looking at three, now four brands from multiple franchisor companies, multiple umbrella parent companies. What are the pros and cons of dealing with, a big organization like you got Neighborly with Mosquito Joe, and then you got other umbrella companies that own some of the other brands. What are the pros and cons of being a franchisee in multiple, not just brands and systems, but umbrella companies as well?
Well, I think the pros is you get to learn a little bit about not only that brand, but how they want to really scale that business. And everybody has their own philosophy. So you're not just getting one philosophy on how to scale and how to
There we
build,
go.
but you're getting multiple perspectives on how we can do it. And what you could do is when you learn from one brand how to do something, you might take that and implement it with your other brands because you're like, wow, we do that for this. Why don't we do
Let
it
me
for
take
this
that and
brand?
put it over here. Sure.
That's pretty cool. It's something we never thought about. So the education that you learn from every perspective of different franchisors is incredible because there's things that I would have never known that I could do with certain brands if I wasn't part of that franchisor. So when you're just part of like Neighborly, then listen, this is the way we do things, right? This is how we do things under Neighborly. But when you're part of horsepower brands or authority brands or different brands, you're going to get their perspective on how you should build a management team, on how you should run it semi-absentee, on how you can run it absentee, how you can really scale the business. This is the marketing tactics that we use to grow the business. And that might not be something you use with the other brands, but you're like, hey, let's try this. It works here. Let's try it on this. And so those are the pros. I think the cons is just you have to be aware that you're dealing with different franchisors, and everybody has their own way of doing things. And a franchise to me is a roadmap. It's they're giving you the playbook to execute. So you really got to follow what they want you to do. So sometimes that could get frustrating to a franchisee, like, hey, I got to follow this certain system, certain process I'm not crazy about because I don't need to do it for the other brand. Why do I need to do it for this brand? So I think that you get different direction. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Because you're like, well, why do we do this over here? But now I have to do it over here. I don't want to do that. It's just, why can't we be like the other company? And I think that's the cons. You got to come to a compromise of, hey, this is how it's ran. The franchisor at the end of the day is going to give you that roadmap. But if you're successful, and Matthew, how many times if you're successful, they're going to leave you alone, right? They're going to let you run your business the way you want to run it because they know you're successful. And if they're collecting their royalties and their marketing fees, they're happy. So if you're growing and scaling the business, I guarantee they're not going to be calling you too much unless you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing or going off the rails. And there's pros and cons to owning different brands from different organizations, but I like it. I think you meet so many people. You're going to meet so many different people from so many different brands and so many different big companies that you learn. You can educate yourself in so many different ways that if you were just with Neighborly, you might not get that same education that if you're with 3 other brands that are not part of Neighborly. So I think it's pretty cool to really learn how every brand scales, how they manage it, what the expectations are, how you could grow it into semi-absentee or an absentee. I think if you could do that, a lot of it does come down to financials, right? The numbers have to work. If the numbers don't work, then it's difficult to run a semi-absentee or an absentee business. But that's where the due diligence comes in, and that's where understanding what brand you should focus on and look at opposed to other brands. If the margins don't work, if you can't scale this thing, to what you want to scale it to, if that doesn't work, then maybe that's not a good semi-absentee business, or maybe not a good absentee.
Mm.
There
Yeah,
are a
that's
lot of
good.
great owner. I mean, listen, I think every business should start out owner operated. Everybody should really be in their business in the beginning and really focus on building and building, and then eventually you could start to remove yourself, like is talked about in EOS, which is talked about in you got Clockwork and all those great books that the E Myth. I mean, the E Myth
Yeah,
is
yeah,
probably one
yeah.
of the, I recommend E Myth to everybody, Michael E. Gerber, but
That's
it's
a must. That's a
oh,
must. If you haven't read E-Myth, what are you doing, man? Come on.
if you didn't read E Myth at least three
Got to
times,
go back to school, man.
yeah, it's just a great book, and just to listen to his voice on audio is incredible. I feel like I'm listening to a professor at a university. It's just or he's like your uncle, like your lost uncle. Uh,
Yeah.
he's got that voice, which is just incredible. But if you're not listening to E Myth on how to grow your business and scale it without being in it and working in it, then you're missing out. You know.
That's a wrap, folks. I'm so excited for more from Dennis. We're going to have part 2 coming up next Friday on Franchise Fridays. Man, I've been wanting to do this for so long, and I am very excited that it is up. It is running. I so hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please share it with a person or two. And if you haven't yet dropped a 5-star review, man, you would just make my heart feel so warm. And I would appreciate it. Until next time, stay humble, stay hungry, stay streetwise. Peace.